pieces of advice because what I was really getting to is exactly like, how do I share Jesus at my workplace? How do I be a Christian in a secular environment?
Yes.
And typically we think like, well, I need to tell them the truth and I need to do. In my experience, at least, all that does is shut doors and not just shut doors for opportunities it shuts doors on God. Like, it's like, actually it's a disservice. Maybe don't talk about Jesus if you're going to live like rude, pieces of advice that you'd give to someone who's like, I want to be a light at my workplace.
Yeah.
Because if you can do it in Hollywood, it feels like anybody can.
Oh, and you can do it anywhere. And that's why I love saying, like, I love that you grabbed onto the bit about you were a high school teacher. And I'm like, yes, I was a high school teacher. Like, that's all I was. I was a high school teacher who I still know nothing about Hollywood. God's just so kind. So pieces of advice, I would say there's 3 key ones. Learn to hear his voice. Learn to hear his voice with desperation. Matthew 11:12, storm the gates of heaven, refusing to leave until he gives you the reality of living and abiding in his presence and in his voice. You can't do that without community and accountability. You just can't, because you need to surround yourselves. This is part of advice number 1. You need to surround yourself, and they don't have to be in the industry that you're in. I think it's actually better when they're not, because they can keep that purity of the standard can be high. And I've had times where my community has told me, you're hearing wrong, or given me the kick up the butt, or told me when maybe my ego was going in the wrong direction, or it's vital. 2, let God do the ugly work of shaping your character. We think it's ugly because it involves prisons and dungeons and fires, but he looks at it as pure gold. And I've learned to look at it as pure gold. Let him shape your character. I think we're in our generation destiny oriented. I think in Christianity we're like, there's a call upon my life. There's destiny. I wish we would all just flush it and go have your way, Jesus.
Yeah.
And I've always said of Jesus, great, you've called me to Hollywood. Have fun bringing that about. It's not my job, but you better get me ready or I will make a big mess. And so I've had huge seasons of just torment as he's uprooted shame in my life, or put back together my marriage, or you name it, Adam. So let him shape your character. And that usually means taking you as far away from the call as possible, and you refusing to run away or force time until he says it. 3rd piece of advice, and this is the last one, Isaiah 54:2. Invest in the presence of God so that your tent can keep. It's a command by God. Push out your tent pegs. Push them out. So that, why do you have a tent? So that others can come rest and be in the safety of family, be in the safety of community, the safety of away from the harshness of reality, the sun, you name it. So I've made that a living existence in my life. I can't give what I haven't cultivated myself. But I don't cultivate it for other people. I cultivate it to go, Jesus, like, I'm desperate for you. Even now, you just feel his presence. And I am not okay if there's a day that goes by where that's not at the top of my mind. Those are my 3 pieces of advice.
So I just want to highlight this. What I was looking for, and you answered it perfectly. What I was looking for was like, share your faith with one coworker a day, like host a Bible study at your workplace.
I never do any of that.
Like go do what you just gave is the most beautiful answer. Like, because it's usually like, well, I need to inform them. And all you did was become more like Jesus. Spend time with Jesus. No, but I want to reach my office, though. They don't know. Spend even more time with Jesus. Like, that rudeness, that arrogance, like that bitter, like, become more and more and more like Jesus. And then just be present. And people will be so irresistibly drawn to the Jesus inside of you that they'll start asking you questions. Yes, exactly. You know, like that, like feel like the opposite of everything. That was beautiful. Like I honestly didn't even expect you to give me that answer, and that was great. So that was like that's one of my favorite answers, because even for me, I'm like, well, do these things and this and this and this. No, just become so much like Jesus. Spend so much time with him.
Yeah. And I think it's worthy of being clarified that I said be desperate to hear his voice, because there will be times where he asks you to be very specific and practical. There will be times where he goes, hey, I want you to go check on this person, or hey, I want you to share this. I want you to go prophesy over this person, or I want you to share a dream you had about this person. Like, if I didn't know how to move and flow with him and hear his voice, then I couldn't do the practicals. My point is, in my own strength and in my own, hey, that's a good idea, I don't take action. Like, I'm not a visionary. I'm not a creative. I'm a practical, I'm a soldier. I'm like boots on the ground army that just happens to be elevated into positions of favor. And I think it's because God knows she will just do what I say. Like, Catherine's not in it for anything else. It's obedience for her.